On today's show, J.J Peterka has been traded, but not to Ottawa. Could the Senators have matched or even done better than what the Sabres accepted from the Utah Mammoth?
And the NHL Draft is just one day away, so Ross and I each have our own individual rankings.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today is Thursday, June 26th, and Pillsy, we're also going to get to the Senators preseason schedule that was announced earlier yesterday, but the big news, and it came out about midnight, J.J Peterka on the move from Buffalo to Utah. Your thoughts on the deal and the return?
Certainly a surprising deal, Ross, especially it seemed like the Peterka news had kind of died down a little bit. Utah was not a team that I had kind of in the forefront of my mind to acquire him. And the return, I mean, if I'm the Buffalo Sabres fans, that's pretty underwhelming for a guy that was going to be a big part of your future and was looking really promising. But if he says he's not going to stay there, then I guess you got to do something with him. But I got to imagine there was better offers for those maybe unaware. The deal was J.J. Peterka with a signed 5-year extension at 7.7 AAV to the Utah Mammoth. And in return, Buffalo received Josh Doan and Michael Kesselring. This doesn't make the Sabres better. It's a sweet move for the Utah Mammoth. They now have a pretty promising top 6, but bit of a head scratcher for me.
A little bit. It does address needs for the Buffalo Sabres, but that said, when you're trading your most valuable asset that's available, obviously they're not moving Tage Thompson, Rasmus Dahlin, but Peterka as an RFA, you got to try to get that top-end talent back. And it looks like, reporting out of Minnesota says, the Wild offered Marco Rossi plus as a separate offer, but Buffalo decides to go with the deal. And look, Michael Kesselring is an underrated defenseman in the league. He had 29 points last year. He's only 24 years old. He's still coming into his own in the league. He's 6'5" as well. He's got 1 year left at $1.4 million, and he's an RFA for one more season beyond that. So they hold team control. They've got so many left shot defensemen. They're basically like the Ottawa Senators were. The Sabres, I know Bowen Byram's an RFA, and they might be looking to move him, but even if they move Bowen Byram, they still have 4 left shot defensemen on their roster, including 2 first overall picks in Owen Power and Rasmus Dahlin. And then you also have Matthias Samuelsson making over $4 million. And then in a lesser role, Jacob Bryson. But that said, it is not a great return overall. I'm a big Peterka guy, but from the Sens perspective, I got a lot of pushback by saying the equivalent would be Artem Zub and Ridley Gregg. What did you think about my comparison there? And then I'll defend myself.
Whoa, you're assuming I'm going to attack it?
Everyone else did.
Well, first, I'm also surprised that there was no draft picks involved. That kind of shocked me. And Ross, you mentioned Kesselring is under team control for the Buffalo Sabres. Well, so is Peterka. So being an RFA doesn't necessarily mean you're under team control, because they can just be like, cool, I'm not going to sign here. Deal with it. And it seems that's trending to be the direction of most players in Buffalo, which is unfortunate for them and their fan base. Now, to your Sens comparison of Zub and Gregg, I think Gregg is farther along, and I would say he's a better player than Doan. And Zub and Kesselring, they provide different aspects to their game. I would say I think Kesselring can have a little bit more offense than Zub, but Zub is a little bit more established and does have, 2 years left at 4.6 rather than just 1, but obviously 1 year at 1.4, and Kesselring being younger. It's so hard to do these, right? So I don't know if I necessarily agree with you, Ross, but I don't think I would attack you the way most people did. And people that are saying a better comparable would have been Clevin that is way off.
Right, because the whole point was that Buffalo's trying to address a need, a right shot defenseman.
Yeah.
And I also saw a few people saying Yakimchuk. Like, no, the
No,
Sabres think they're
no.
going to be a good team, let alone the value of the player.
Yeah.
Obviously, Yakimchuk has way more than anybody else we've just mentioned, other than, I mean, Peterka for Yakimchuk 1-for-1. You could argue that value-wise with the contract extension, but that's a different story. I just felt like with Josh Doan, who, by the way, was used with the Arizona second-round pick that they got from Ottawa for Derek Stepan. So that one still kind of stings in a different sense. He had an unreal start to his NHL career, 9 points, 5 goals in 11 games with Arizona. Took a step back with 51 games this season, only 19 points. But like quickly, the Sens fans forget that Ridley Gregg had 9 points in his first 20 games and only 2 goals, and then followed that up with 26 points in 72 games. So it's not like Josh Doan is so much further behind where Ridley Gregg was 1 year ago. So if they're thinking Josh Doan can take another step forward, I think it's actually a pretty decent comparable. They obviously play the game a little bit of a different way, but I don't think it's an outrageous comparison. I think Ridley Gregg has a bit more value than Josh Doan, and maybe different now that Gregg signed the contract extension. Doan's still in the last year of his entry level. But then I also think Michael Kesselring, with the age and the contract making so much less than Zub, is probably a more valuable asset than Zub. So I felt like that was as close as it would get from the Senators' perspective. Would you have made that trade if it was Zub and Gregg?
First off, I don't have a better comparable, Ross, so I'm not going to push back too hard on you. It's hard to do that. So kudos to you for having the courage to make a player comparable trade for the Sens.
I didn't even think twice about it. I was getting ready for bed. It was late at night. And then all of a sudden, and this is rare because believe it or not, I do not have notifications turned on for social media. Because the last thing I need is to be on it even more.
Yeah.
But I do have them for Sportsnet from the Sportsnet Now and watching the out of market games. And it said, breaking news. J.J. Peterka is going to Utah. I said, holy smokes, let's get involved in this. So initially, you're obviously wondering, and we did a full episode on should J.J. Peterka be an Ottawa Senator? And the answer was a resounding, get him with Tim Stützle right now, please. But I think when you look back now at what the deal was, you wanted to know what would be similar. What could Ottawa have offered, knowing that that's the type of players that the Buffalo Sabres were looking for?
Yeah, to answer your question, I would not have done Zub and Gregg for Peterka, not because I don't think that's fair value or that the Ottawa Senators would win that trade. I'm a big Peterka guy. I want to see him playing with Tim Stützle, but the Ottawa Senators cannot afford to lose a right shot defenseman, and more specifically, Artem Zub. And you can argue what his value is in the league for other teams, but for the Ottawa Senators, having a player like Zub, 4.6 for this year and next year is good. But more importantly, having the right player to play with your number one defenseman, Jake Sanderson, is very valuable to this organization. And let's say they do make that move, regardless of whether you think the comparison is proper or what the value is, whatever. Let's say they move on from Zub in any capacity. You're looking at a right side of Jensen, who we're unsure if he's even going to be ready to start the season, although he looks pretty good rollerblading, pushing a baby stroller around. Not a doctor, not sure how that compares to skating in NHL games. And Nicholas Matsimpalo. And sure, you can say Carter Yakimchuk as well, but Carter Yakimchuk has played 0 regular season NHL games. So you can't put him on that pedestal and be like, oh, he could play top 4 for a full season right away. You just can't do that just quite yet. I believe in Carter Yakimchuk, but let's slow down on that. So that would be detrimental to the way this team would look.
And we're pulling it up. If you're watching on YouTube right now, this is our depth chart going into the offseason. Maybe we'll tweet this out over the weekend before the signing period begins on July 1st. And we'll have added all the players that are drafted this weekend by the Ottawa Senators. Black means they're going into the final year of their contract. Red means that they're a restricted free agent currently. Red means they're a pending unrestricted free agent, and blue means they're an unsigned draft pick that the Senators still hold their rights beyond one more year. So the right side of the defense is something the Senators need to add. So it just was never a fit for the Ottawa Senators to make a deal with the Buffalo Sabres, who had the same need, and they feel like they addressed it with Michael Kesselring. I would have liked Michael Kesselring to be a member of the Ottawa Senators. I saw that name thrown out there a few times. I also saw on Pat McAfee's show about a month and a half ago, they had Ryan Smith, the owner of the Utah Mammoth, on, and he, out of nowhere, just started singing the praises of Kesselring. So I just felt, oh, he's a part of the core. He's part of what they're hoping to like re-sign, build. But you get an opportunity to get J.J. Peterka and round out their top six. If Utah gets a goalie, they're going to be a really hard team to beat next season.
Yeah, I think now that Kesselring's gone, they're going to have to find a way to replace him on the back end. But
we were huge Dmitry Simashev fans.
He's a left shot
here, but he plays the right side.
Yeah. Okay. Fair. Yep. I definitely did like him, but again, like, are you expecting him to be able to step into the NHL and play top 4 minutes? I'm not sure. And
well, they still have Marino and Dursey on the right side. Marino was hurt a lot of last year.
Yeah, and Dursey was hurt a lot of last year as well. Those are fine players, but if you're looking at elite,
35 and 30 games for those two last year.
Yeah, so that's an issue for them. Moving on from Kesselring, I don't know how. Maybe they go into the Ekblad sweepstakes. That could be a player that fits there, but Sergachev is good, but they're lacking a bit of star power on the back end. And then, like you mentioned, a goalie duo of Vejmelka and Ingram. I don't think that's getting where you need to go.
No, and clearly they like Vejmelka. They just signed him to a 5-year extension. So let's see if Vejmelka can be the guy there. They also have Michael Hrabal as a Czech prospect, second-round pick, who's going back to UMass, where he'll have some Senators prospect teammates next year in Cameron O'Neill and Nicholas Van Tassel. We will see how the Utah Hockey Club, Mammoth, I should say, look after that deal. But you know what? I'll end it by saying this, Pilsy. I ain't mad that J.J. Peterka has moved to the Western Conference.
Yeah, same. I'm glad that that's where he ended up. And that's going to be exciting to go to a new franchise like the Utah Mammoth that have a great owner, or at least it seems that way, in Ryan Smith. So I think this is a good move. And then he quickly gets business done, a 5-year deal at $7.7 million. Like, I would say that's
highest paid forward on the Mammoth.
Yeah, I would say that's the deal I expected. Like, do you think that's fair market value for him?
Yeah, I saw some people saying that like it's fair value, but sometimes you hope that you get a bit of a discount for the RFA years.
Yeah. You got to put in the RFA years. That's fair. But I think that's fair value and a good deal for the Mammoth and for Peterka.
J.J. Peterka with 5 goals and 8 points in 12 career games against the Ottawa Senators. Let's turn our focus to the National Hockey League Draft coming up tomorrow. We've almost made it. So Pilsy and I have taken all the information that we've gathered from talking to very many scouts around the hockey world and doing our own research for our top 50. And we've got our lists. We'll tweet them out individually on our personal social media accounts either today or tomorrow. But we've got some battles to get into, and it includes some of the players slated to go around where the Ottawa Senators pick. So that's next. Then we'll touch on the Sens preseason schedule and more. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Well, GMs are worried about their budgeting, Ross, but you don't have to be. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track, but that's where Monarch Money comes in. They're your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money, it's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, all your investments, and all your spending in one place. So stop just managing your money. Start building that wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, just use Monarch Money to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan your long-term goals. And managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all that stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our great friends at the Glebe Central Pub. You want to support Locked On Senators? Support the Glebe Central Pub. They've been with us for a number of years now. We can't thank them enough. They've got great food, awesome drinks. The vibes are free at the GCP, and Red Black season is here. The Ottawa Red Blacks are returning home this Sunday to take on the Toronto Argonauts in a Battle of Ontario. And you can get to the game walking distance from the GCP. So head there before kickoff. It's a 7 o'clock kickoff Eastern time, and they will be rocking and rolling at the pub pregame, postgame, live music every Saturday night at the GCP. They've got something every night of the week. They've got wing night every Monday. Tuesday is trivia night. Wednesday, open mics, and I love me some Taco Thursday. Heck yeah. Also, not only the Red Blacks, but Atletico Ottawa is back in action. So you can go check out anything going on at Lansdowne just down the street from the GCP. So whether it's live music, a night out with friends, make Glebe Central Pub your home base because, as you know, the vibes are free at the GCP. You can find them at 779 Bank Street and let them know that Locked On Senators sent you. All right, Pillsy. So we're seeing some social media announcements for other NHL teams who are having celebrities make their first round picks. The Anaheim Ducks have a couple of the actors from the Mighty Ducks movie. I believe Adam Banks is one of them. And the Cat Gaffney, another. And then the St. Louis Blues just announced that it is comedian Nikki Glazer who is going to make the pick for them. So we asked at Sens Central on Twitter, which Senators fan, celebrity, or Ottawa native should make the pick? Now, rest in peace to Alex Trebek. You're never going to beat what we saw in 2020, making the pick for Tim Stützle. But if you had to put your vote in, who would it be for?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. This is another rest in peace, but Matthew Perry from Friends would have been awesome. I tweeted out Rihanna in the Sens dress. I don't know if she's gonna, or Sens jersey that she made into a dress, essentially. Great look. That would be awesome, but I don't think she's gonna be doing that. If the Sens want to fly us out to do it, Ross, I would humbly accept a trip to LA to announce the pick. I don't have very many great options. How about you?
I've got two. One of them is Annie Murphy.
Nice. Yep.
From Schitt's Creek, our good friend Menno Versteeg's wife.
Yep.
And there are a couple others that I'm a little bit on the fence about because one, I'm not 100% sure they're Ottawa Senators or even hockey fans. Do they have to be though?
I mean, they need to be from Ottawa or an Ottawa Senators fan, or both. The combo would be great. Should we get an actual senator to do it? A senator from Ottawa? That's exciting.
Yeah, because I'm looking at some pretty loose connections from people in Hollywood to Ottawa, and I know they're trying to be very dramatic in this. You know who lived in Ottawa for a couple of years growing up?
No.
Tom Cruise.
Okay.
Get him doing some Mission Impossible stunts coming in there, making the pick. Jokes aside, Tom Green would probably be my vote. I think he'd do something out of the ordinary, I think would be a good way to describe him.
Yeah, definitely. If it's Tom Cruise, make sure you give him a little booster though, so he can you can see him on the pedestal on the mic.
He's a little guy, hey?
Little guy, yeah.
Sens wouldn't incorporate that in their draft, even if it's just the guy making the pick.
Yeah, definitely not.
Although Don Boyd made some comments at his press conference. I've never stood next to him, but he thinks he's a short guy too.
Yeah, but Ross, maybe that's a strategy. You get Tom Cruise to do it, and then you draft a, 5'10", 180-pound guy from the Calgary Hitmen, and he looks big. You're like, look, big guy.
Yeah. Hey, it's all about who you're standing next to, all about who your friends are. But I think Annie Murphy would be the best choice.
Fun.
I think and she's got name recognition appeal there. If you want to go, I know it's not Celine Dion, who we got to see make the Habs pick last year, but Alanis Morissette, good Ottawa girl. She sang the national anthem a few times. So there's some options there. Sandra Oh from the Grey's Anatomy show. She's an Ottawa native. Paul Anka, Ottawa native. Now we're just naming famous people who are from Ottawa.
Yeah.
But your final answer, Tom Green?
Yeah. I'll go Tom Green. Check the OR legendary song.
You like it so far?
Yeah.
I like our draft rankings so far. And I've been deliberating on this probably more than I'd like to admit.
It's a living, breathing organism, Ross.
Of the last 2 months. And there was a time where both of us were going to be hot take artists. And neither of us. Oh, I lied. You actually did it. Eh?
Yeah,
you actually did it.
I got courage, Ross. I'll do it.
Okay. Who's your first overall pick in this draft class?
Whoa. First overall pick and top ranked player, different things, Ross.
Okay.
Let's differentiate. But again, I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying to be different. I'm trying to be big brain pillsy here. But I have Michael Misa as the top player in this draft. And that's no disrespect to Matthew Schaefer. I think, Ross, and this is probably where it actually is I just didn't, I don't have the tape. I don't have the longevity of Schaefer to really have him prove to me that he is the best far and away in this draft. Whereas Michael Misa is just absolutely amazing. And I think if it ends up being the San Jose Shark that get him, I mean, that's a pretty sweet consolation prize. So I'm a big Michael Misa guy.
Yeah, and I am too, but I just couldn't bring myself to putting him ahead of Matthew Schaefer. I get the games played. Matthew Schaefer has only played in 73 OHL games. Michael Misa played in 65 this year, plus 4 playoff games. But what he did this season was incredible. And not only that, what his projection is one of the youngest players in the draft class. And the way he, despite only playing 1 game at the World Juniors, he was the best player on the ice in that game as a 17-year-old against Finland, a good team. It wasn't like they were playing against, I don't know, Kazakhstan in the first game of the tournament. So I look at Matthew Schaefer and I look at how NHL teams build from the back out. And I said back out on purpose because goalies, for some reason, never go early in the draft, despite it being the most important position. But that's why I went with Matthew Schaefer. The upside for him is more rare than the upside for a top line centerman like I think Michael Misa can be.
Okay, fair.
So that's an interesting one right off the bat. Now we do have a 2-person tier, both of us at the top. Michael Misa and Matthew Schaefer are the 2 players that are far and away better than anyone else in the class. My next tier goes from 3 to 10. And yours goes from 3 to 9. So where do we differ? We'll get to that. Wrap up our list. We'll show you our list. And only 1 preseason game in Ottawa for the Senators next fall. But does it matter? Those are next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Rougiette. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Rougiette Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiette's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rougiette might be the answer. Join over 150,000 men that have already made the switch. I love that it's completely online. Rougiette connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. Head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnNHL and use code LockedOnNHL to get 15% off today. That's Rougiette.com, RUGIET.com/LockedOnNHL and use promo code LockedOnNHL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. please visit the Rougiette website for full safety information. All right, Pillsy, it is just about draft day. So why don't you tell the people our plan here at Locked On Senators for this 2025 NHL Draft.
So you guys know we're your daily show Monday through Friday. So we're not going to make you wait all the way to the end of Friday. So we're going to have another episode lined up for you, similar time as usual on LOSP, a Friday morning. We're going to watch the draft with anticipation, with excitement. And then as soon as the draft is over, we're going to make a reaction video episode, a bonus episode, so that you can hear all our takes on how things went. And then it's not over. The draft's not over, so we're not done. Saturday, rounds 2 through 7 happen. We're going to live stream from what? We're going to start at 11:30, Ross, half an hour before the draft?
From 11:30. Until the time that we decide.
Yes, there we go.
But we do have a guest joining us at 2:15. So at least
it's going to be a couple hours. And we're going to watch as the Ottawa Senators make their selections in the 3rd and 4th round at the very least. And it's going to be fun. We're going to bring guys on to have good vibes, guys that have information around the Ottawa Senators, guys that have draft info. So join us Saturday instead of just watching the boring coverage they usually have for the second day of the draft.
Yeah, it's not great. So yeah, it's just going to be more so hanging out. It'll be a very post-casty vibe in the chat. We hope you guys are able to join us. Of our guests so far, we have journalist.
Oh, you're going to release them. I was doing a tease.
This is still a tease.
Okay.
I just think it's funny that there's such a wide range. We have someone who plays hockey for a living.
Yes.
We have someone that plays music for a living.
Yes.
And someone who makes content for a living, and maybe a few more sprinkled in as well. So stay tuned for that on the Locked On Senators YouTube channel. And then that will be exclusively on YouTube. We're not going to post a 4-hour stream, but maybe we'll clip a couple of the interviews because I think that they will be very fun. All that to say, Pillsy, if you are still looking for more draft information, our full first round mock draft with special guest is nearing 20,000 views. And that means that we're getting our prep ready to do it for the 5th consecutive year. As long as y'all keep watching it, we will keep doing our homework and holding down the fort. A lot of homework went into our top 50 rankings, Pillsy. I'm looking forward to people getting mad at our list. I'm even mad at my own list at times. I'm looking at this thing. I'm saying, man, there's even a player on our top 50 who we didn't profile in our top 50, but his name just keeps coming up. We'll get to that because he could be a fit for the Ottawa Senators. And that brings me to a tease for tomorrow morning's episode. We're going to look at all of the mock drafts that we trust around. So Sportsnet, TSN, The Athletic, NHL.com, and our friend Sebastian High over at Locked On NHL Prospects. And a lot of them have different opinions of who the Senators are going to select. So we'll get to all of those, discuss the benefits and maybe the drawbacks from those picks. And then we're going to look at, based on yesterday's episode about how the Senators like to draft, we're going to put our 10 most likely outcomes for the Ottawa Senators first round pick. Even if they trade back a few spots, I think that the lists are going to be so different for each team this year that I think we can narrow it down. That's going to be our challenge for tomorrow morning's show on draft day. But our challenge right now is to convince each other why our lists are better than the other one. I'm just going to run through our top 10 for the audio listeners. We're going to scroll through it so that the visual watchers on YouTube can see our entire top 50. But I think it would get boring if we just name 100 players and 50 times 2. So we're going to post it overall on Twitter later today or tomorrow. That will be something to look forward to. Why is Victor Eklund in your 3rd tier? He is number 10 for me. He's number 10 for you. We've got a different order of the players in between. They're the same players, but different order. But you cut it a little shorter than I have.
Yeah, and look, this is no disrespect to Victor Eklund. I just don't think he has.
Looks like it.
No. I started off with saying it's no disrespect, Ross.
That's kind of what someone would say if they're disrespecting someone. I don't mean any disrespect, but
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going for here. I just don't think he has that upside that Martone, Hagens, Denwye, Frondell, O'Brien, Martin, and McQueen have. Like, I think he's going to be a good player. I love his forechecking. I love his motor. I love his compete. I love the fact that he was able to be a point producer in the Allsvenskan League with Djurgården, that he's going to have an opportunity to play in the SHL likely next year. I think right there is where I cut off the potential upside.
I appreciate that wholeheartedly, but I think that if you put Victor Eklund in the right situation, that he can be that. Now, only Porter Martone is not a natural center in between. So for me, it's who is Victor Eklund going to be able to play with? Like, let's say he goes number 10, which would be the Anaheim Ducks. Him and Leo Carlson together, I see him as an 80, 85-point player and having that offensive capability while also being a responsible defensive conscious on that line too. So that's where I still have him in that, because I think the upside is, it's basically my cutoff for this tier is who do I think has the potential to be a first line player, not top 6, a first line player. And I believe Victor Eklund is that.
And see, I've got Victor Eklund as a middle 6 guy.
There you go.
I don't see a world where he becomes a top line player. Even a second line player, I think would be his ceiling. So that's where I drew that line. Okay.
I appreciate that. I do. And we will see in about 10 years if that comes true. If that comes true. Oh, I'm moving around on YouTube, and that is because I just added Cam Robinson's mock draft to our list. It is very
It just
spicy.
came out now?
Just came out now.
Oh.
Should we tease it?
Sure.
They took my 13th ranked player at 21.
Ooh. I like that.
I like that a lot. That said, there's one difference in our third tier, and this is a name. And if you watched our episode yesterday on YouTube with Sens Talk over on his channel, Brandon Plant, been doing great work there for 13 years. The guy's an animal. Started that thing before he could walk. He's been doing it so long. But we brought up a few names that we would love the Senators to be interested in. But our order is flipped by one spot on this list. I have Cole Reschny one spot ahead of Braden Coots, and you have Coots one spot ahead of Reschny. Forget where we have them, because I'm a little higher on both of them than you are. But what was the difference maker why you put Coots ahead of Reschny?
Yeah, this isn't going to be a compelling argument. What's the word I'm looking for? Where you're combating with each other.
I almost said problematic. It's not that. Polarizing.
Yeah, polarizing.
Contentious?
Contentious. Thank you. Yes, that's exactly the word I was looking for. Word of the day, contentious.
Woo!
This is not going to be a contentious argument. If I could easily switch Reschny and Coots, the one thing I would say that gave Coots the edge for me is I like the leadership aspect. He was the captain of the Seattle Thunderbirds and was the captain of Team Canada at the U18. So the double captain gave him the boost here, but I could certainly see a world where Reschny is valued ahead of Coots, but I don't think, I think those two should be side by side in everyone's rankings.
Yeah, well, Reschny were an A for the Victoria Royals last year too. Both of them were elite at the World Under-18s, where Reschny had 5 goals and 8 points, while Coots led the team with 6 goals and 12 points in that tournament. And Coots did it with 0 penalty minutes. And when you watch his clips and the way he plays, the way he forechecks, that's impressive that he's able to kind of be as physical and compete as hard as he does without taking those needless penalties. But if you look, my difference maker is the offensive upside that Reschny provides. 99 points for Reschny this season in his WHL year, and Coots, same league. I know he's on a worse team, but had 63 points in 60 games. So that was my slight difference maker. Both would be phenomenal picks if they fall to the Ottawa Senators at 21. Anything else in this tier that caught your attention?
Yeah, what do we have all the same players in here? I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
Except you have Eklund.
Yes, yeah. I think you're doing Justin Carbonneau some disrespect by having him that low, but I don't think it's that crazy that we're 3 spots difference there. Mertka, I think will go before 15 for sure. That's mock draft style, but I just think his size and his ability to be an elite shutdown defenseman on the right side, that brings a lot of value there. So I've got Mertka decently higher than you, 4 picks higher.
Yeah, and Mertka, obviously at 6'6", is going to be one of those players that teams look at and say, yeah, he can be a shutdown player. He's not like the crazy, most physical defenseman, not going to hit you in open ice as much as maybe some teams would like, but he does box out great in front of the net. And if there ends up being more offensive upside there, then all of a sudden you have a unicorn on the back end. Our third tier, which goes all the way down, does it even extend past? Mine extends to 26. I have Sasha Boumedienne at 26 in this same tier. As you can see on YouTube, it's just on the next page. But we both start our third tier at 18th overall. And you're going with Ben Kindle. I have 19, so no real flip there. And then Blake Fiddler, who I thought you'd be higher on than me. You've got him 20, and I've got him at 18. So I find that pretty interesting as well. If we're going for a bit of a fight, Cameron Schmidt, you've got him at 22. I've got him down at 31. What's the selling point on why Cameron Schmidt at 5'7" is at 22 on your list?
40 goals in 61 games, 78 total points, 9 points in 5 playoff games. And Ross, I know you look at that 5'7" and you think, okay, this is a small player, but I don't believe that he plays like a 5'7" guy. Like, he's still able to battle. He doesn't back down from too much. And I like the way that EP put their shades of a turbocharged Alex DeBrincat. So I know Sens fans are salty about DeBrincat, but he is a good player. And add that scoring touch with more speed, and you've got a good player. And at 5'7", EP also gave him the "got that dog in him" tag. So he's not, he's not a German Shepherd or a Labrador or one of those big dogs, but he's feisty. And just because he's 5'7" doesn't mean he can't succeed. Logan Stankoven, perfect example of that. So I just think that maybe you're shying off a little bit too much just based on that size.
That's very true. I am. And I still have him as a first round talent. When we did his profile, I think we still said, like, maybe realistically, it just takes one team to love him and jump up and take him earlier. But that this feels like the first pick on the second day of the draft, where it's like you might even see teams, and this is always fun about the first round being the night before, teams calling. They know their list. There's a guy who's at 15 on their list, still available. And can we get that 33rd overall selection? But that's where I think Cameron Schmidt will go a little bit later. And my biggest reasoning for that is seeing Bob McKenzie's final rankings. And that, to me, is the dead giveaway that teams are not as high on Cameron Schmidt as the outside scouting sphere, where your job's not on the line if a first-round pick who's 5'7" doesn't pan out. Bob McKenzie has him at 47 on his list.
Yeah, and that's fair. But EP scouting polls, Ross, they gave him best shot in the draft.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't know if the guy with the best shot in the draft ends up going in the second round. That's all I'll say.
Well, it's happened before, right? Maybe not the best, but close to it with Alex DeBrincat. He goes in the second round. He's turned out great, but it's just, will a team have the...
That's fair.
I almost said audacity. The confidence
the audacity
to step up.
Of draft. The Sens would say that. The audacity of drafting a 5'7" guy in the first round.
Can you believe it? No, I can't believe the Ottawa Senators would even be interested. The next biggest gap that you and I have, you have Ivan Ryakin at 31st overall on your list. And for mine, you have to go all the way down to 46 on my rankings. And funny enough, your 46th ranked player we'll get to next is 33rd on mine, but it's a defenseman. But what's the selling point on Ivan Ryakin of why he's at 31 on your list?
Skill. He's a shoot first guy. He's got a blast of a one-timer, quick release. He can also make great plays. His assists are nice passes. He's not just touching the puck and having it work through and end up being a point for him. He had 30 points in 27 USHL games with the Muskegon Lumberjacks, the championship USHL Clark Cup championship team winning Lumberjacks. And he had his shining moments in the playoffs as well with 16 points in 14 games. Ross, I think really well, I'll let you get into it, but my assumption to why you have him lower is he is a complete hothead and there's no telling what he's going to do. And he might end up with more time in the penalty box in crucial moments than he is celebrating goals in crucial moments.
Yeah. Can I just say it really respectfully?
Respectfully, yes.
He's an idiot.
Whoa. Okay.
Some of the things he's doing on the ice, I'm just watching. I'm like, what the hell is
it's
this
wild.
guy doing?
Yeah.
But the skill's there, and that's why he's a second round pick for me. If he wasn't, I wouldn't. I bet you that there's a number of teams that don't even have him on their list. They're like, I don't want anything to do with this guy.
And that's fair. There are some concerns for sure. I'll put that more respectfully than you put yours.
I said respectfully.
Yes, you did. Yep. There's no denying that. But I just think if you can find a way to rein him in, maybe get him with another high-profile Russian player to kind of put him under his wing, I think this can be a really good player, and he could be a guy that we're looking at in years to come and be like, oh, man, where did he go in the draft? But also, I can see a situation where he lights it up and teammates and coaches and everybody's just sick of him, and he bounces around a lot. And, shades of Alex Galchenyuk?
Ha! That's actually a really interesting call.
Right?
Let's put it this way. You've got him one spot ahead of his teammate in Muskegon in the USHL, Vaclav Nestrasil. I have Nestrasil way ahead of Ryakin.
Where do you have Nestrasil?
I have Nestrasil sitting at number 36 on my list. And you have him at 32. So we're in similar spots there. In our rankings, we had him way lower, but that's because he's one of those late risers. And as the list came out, as we had already gone past Nestrasil, he just kept going higher and higher on the list. I've got Henry Brusevich at 33. You have him at 46. I see the offense there. I saw the trajectory his brother took after falling in his draft year. And I don't think he's going to go 33rd overall. But I think when we look back at this draft, that we're going to look at Brusevich and say, damn, that guy should have gone higher.
Yeah, I like Brusevich. I didn't mean to disrespect him. I think I just had other guys ahead of him. In my notes, I projected he's going to get drafted in the middle of the second round. I don't know. There wasn't anything that really popped off for me with Brusevich. So I think that's why I was a little bit lower on him.
Yeah, okay. That's fair. What else stood out to you? Let's touch quickly here as we're getting a little long. We will put out our full list on Twitter at Sens Central. I went 34 for Ravensburgen, and then I waited a little bit longer to go with Jack Ivankovic at 38. So I've got two goalies in my top 40. You were higher on Ravensburgen, and were you lower? I'm not seeing.
I got him there, but
49.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're a hashtag goalie friendly show, but I don't feel that strongly about either of these goalies. Like none of them I'm looking at and being like, oh man, the team that drafts them, they've got their goalie of the future type. And Ivankovic may even be better than Ravensburgen. I'm not sure. I don't feel, maybe I should move Ivankovic up a little bit, Ross, but I don't feel that strongly about it. You could
he's just
take
a gamer.
your time to persuade me.
He's just a gamer. He's a gamer, and I like goalies that are gamers, and I think that he's going to be an NHL goalie. How good he is, he'll determine that. I like that he's going NCAA next year too. I think that's going to be good. More time in the gym. Can't get taller in the gym, but you can get stronger and you can work on your craft outside of playing a ton of hockey like he did last year for the Brampton Steelheads, where he played 43 games. This year, he's going to the University of Michigan. So I just think that's a great spot for him to land. One other goalie that I put honorable mention, we haven't covered him at all, but Pilsy, Semyon Frolov is a name to watch. Played in the MHL last season, .912 save percentage in playoffs, .910 during the year. Last couple of years, like when he played last year, .915 and a .937 save percentage. Always a Russian goalie that kind of comes out of nowhere, and you're like, oh, damn, he ends up being really good. So we will put out our full top 50. The one player that we didn't cover that we believe will be in the top 50 of the NHL draft and could be a target for Ottawa is Shane Van Sage, who...
Let's get into him tomorrow, Ross. I think we can do a deep dive because he could be in that range for the Sens, and he's the type of player they like.
Yeah, so we'll make a note of that. Finally, and we're not going to spend much time on this, it's preseason. The Senators announcing a 6-game preseason schedule, and I think that's probably the most notable thing. Down from 8 games, 6 preseason games. They will play 2 of them in Quebec City. They will also begin the preseason September 21st. So mark your calendar, September 21st, Sens Leafs, a playoff rematch. Feel the excitement. It'll be in Ottawa, but that will be the only game they play in Ottawa. 3 p.m. against the Leafs. Then they play in Toronto on the 23rd. They go to Quebec City for the 28th and the 30th. And then this is kind of strange. They play at St. Louis on October 2nd. The Winnipeg game's gone, but they're still going to the Western Conference. Come on, come to Winnipeg. Why not? Great that time of year. And then they wrap up with a game against Montreal. And that kind of pisses me off because those games just always turn into a complete gong show. Wow. What I will say, Pilsy, and this is great for us, very selfish to bring this up. The show's not about us, it's about them. But if the preseason ends on October 4th,
which it is for the Sens,
I think we might be safe for the home opener because you and I are best men in separate weddings the weekend of October 18th. Yeah. And that has been historically around the time the Sens play their home opener.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm praying the home opener is before that. And I think it will be, Ross, because it's going to be tough for me to tell my best friend that, hey, as the best man, I can't go to the wedding. I'm going to the Sens home opener. That's going to be a tough one.
Very tough conversation. All right, Pilsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
No, not really. I don't think people are really that upset about the one game in Ottawa for the preseason. I don't think it makes that big of a deal. And if you're going to do the Quebec City games, do them in the preseason. I don't have a big issue with that. So it's all good. The big thing, like you said, is going from 8 to 6. 8 preseason games. Foolish, unnecessary. Good move.
It is a good move. And maybe it'll even be down to 4. Looks like we're going to get some CBA news. We'll cover that here. Locked On Senators. We're also going to get into, there were some posts on social media about fans in Utah discovering heartbreak in the NHL of players being moved. Have a seat, young lad. We'll tell you about that. Ring of Honor season will begin in about 2 or 3 weeks. And we have added a list of most emotional departures. That will be a topic this summer. We're going to do it once a week. So if you have any ideas, things that you want ranked, discussed, debated, let us know in the comments on YouTube and we will add it to our list. For today, we say goodbye. Thanks so much for joining us, watching, listening, and engaging with the show. Double dip tomorrow. We'll see you in the morning to have some final draft thoughts ahead of the 2025 NHL Draft. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.